Hey everybody, and thanks for tuning into Woodcrest Bonsai. In my last video, I root pruned and repotted a Shillings holly, and I talked about the fact that I had purchased two of them together. And normally I work on both of them together. There has been some videos where that has not happened. And so I just couldn't leave the other guy behind. So this is him. And this tree has a completely different character than the last one. The last one had the uro, and it had a little bit thinner trunk, and it was denser. This tree has a whole bunch of extra foliage out here that has kind of just grown naturally. This is how Shillings grows naturally. And if I did nothing with this tree as far as trimming it back or producing some kind of branching, this tree would get probably 2 or 3 inches higher, and it would just be a somewhat irregular globe. And that's just how Shillings grow. They have very little apical dominance, so that when you pinch a branch off, the new growth just doesn't shoot like crazy. It pops a whole bunch of buds. And I did not really style this tree last year at the same time that I styled the other one, because this one is actually in full bloom. And even though this is a male and it doesn't produce the berries that hollies are famous for, and all holly are dioecious, which means that they have entirely separate male and female plants. And the vast majority of hollies are propagated vegetatively with females so that you get the berries. People want the decorative berries in a holly. The Shillings variety is so popular because with its lack of apical dominance, it's just so easy to form a really nice formal hedge, or a lot of times they're rounded off as little balls in the landscape. So they're perfect for bonsai because you're not fighting rangy growth that's shooting up and up and you're constantly having to chop it back. But because this one was flowering so much, I don't like to manipulate trees when they're flowering. I pretty much just left this guy alone. So we obviously have some decision making. We have the bottom 2 branches are nicely formed. We have a back branch that's also in good proportion, and the top from like here up is going every which way. And you know, we've got some really nice movement here. And then so, you know, if I brought it here, that would be way too straight. So I'm probably going to take this whole thing off, bring it into here, and then begin to try to figure out what I want to do with the rest of the top. But that's once I've done the root pruning. So all my Shillings need to be root pruned this time of year. Some don't need to be root pruned every single year, but they certainly need to be root pruned every couple of years. And root pruning, I've got another one where I just used the window mesh, and that works for me. And look, once again, we have a beautiful root ball, and I'm going to put it right back in the same pot. So I'm going to save my mesh. Just give this guy I'm at a loss for words. We're giving him the hook. And this was another 3-gallon landscape plant that I just got from a big box store. And so it's still got that old root ball. And a lot of times you never get rid of that old root ball all the way down to the base of the tree, and that's fine with me. That doesn't really ever affect the health of a tree. At least not for me. I don't believe in taking every single iota of the old soil off. And we've had some really nice cold weather. So these guys are all completely dormant, but they're getting ready to burst into new growth. So this is pretty important. And I took this one down basically to the old root ball again. Got one little root right there. I normally don't do too much with the bottom roots. Oh, there's some more window screen. You usually end up, there it is, you find a knob where the old roots used to be, where I chopped it way back. So once again, you know, from a 3-gallon pot to the amount of roots it has now, that's pretty drastic. I usually like to do the real drastic root pruning right off the bat when I take it out of the 3-gallon and give it its first root pruning. Really take it way back, and then you don't have to with subsequent root prunings. So there's the old soil. Clean the pot. That was about it. Put the window screen back. And I'm already pretty happy with the front of this guy. Don't really need to change the front at all. So he's a little low in the pot. So we're going to add a layer of soil. And because the bottom is pretty much basically flat, I really won't be worrying about too much airspace underneath there. And this is the same mix that I used on the other tree. Basically all rocks. And this is a little bit finer mix. Typically I make 3 and sometimes 4 different grades of soil. And I use the grain size proportionate to how big the tree is. So much larger trees get the larger grain, and smaller trees get the medium grain, and smaller trees get the smaller grain. And then I even have a mame mix. That's the little tiny mames that I make. They get an even smaller grain. And I have my, whatever you'd call it. It's not a chopstick, but it's a poker jobby. That's a highly technical term. Yeah, I'm using my poker jobby to poke the soil down. I think everyone should have a poker jobby. I don't even know where I got that thing. And another thing, you may see moss on a lot of my trees, but I never promote moss per se, where I actually take sheets of moss and and lay it down on the plant. I just don't do that. The moss just shows up if you're doing it correctly. Bonsai need consistent moisture, and moss loves consistent moisture, so the moss just shows up. And the moss is a very primitive plant, so it produces spores instead of seeds. But the moss on another plant in the spring, when it produces its spores, the spores can go everywhere, and the moss just shows up. So I never worry about the moss, whether I've got moss on my trees or not. Sooner or later it's going to show up. So there we go. And I'm real happy to get this done. I'm real happy that Mother Nature has given us some really nice, cool weather. And then it will sprout. I'll begin to cut it back some, and then once it's rooted better, give it some fertilizer, and then in the next video I'll go in and start choosing more branch structure. And it may be that we end up with just a little stick and start over. I've got my main branches, but there's nothing that says that I'm not going to just take this thing way down and regrow it. And that's part of the way I do bonsai. You don't have to save this, you don't have to wire this guy into place or this guy into place. Just chop it, let it resprout, then take that new growth and begin to put it into place. I do that quite often. So there you go. Ilex Shillings number 2. Now he feels so much better, because now I'm going to put him right next to his buddy, and he's going to be so much happier. The one weird little shoot of downward growing shoot, I'm going to take that off, because that never really adds to a tree. So yes, even the main branches need a little work, but the root pruning this time of year, the timing is just so important, and then the rest of it I can do as the tree develops through the year. So if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe and hit the notification bell, and you can watch this guy continue on his journey, and leave a comment if you'd like. So that's it for this video. I've now got my 2 buddies going to be side by side. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.